I drove into Pando, thinking I was smarter than everyone there. I had my laptop, my documents, and my city confidence. I had planned to solve a problem that had taken 2 years within 3 days. What I didn't know was that something in that town had already noticed me. My name is Makafui. I'll be honest about the kind of man I was when I drove into Pando that Tuesday morning. I had my laptop bag, my printed document in a manila folder with color-coded tabs. I had a return date in my head, Friday, 3 days, 4 at the most. There was this new babe I wanted to woo. Thoughts of her filled my mind until I remembered what I was here for. My mother had been trying to resolve a land boundary matter for 2 years. 2 years of phone calls and middlemen, and nothing was moving. I looked at the document over one weekend and thought, I can see exactly what the problem is. I told her to leave it with me. I was that kind of man. Uncle Kofi met me in the courtyard with the same expression he probably wore when he woke up that morning. Unhurried, unimpressed, settled into himself like a tree that has decided where it's going to grow. Without a thought of greeting, I went to sit on a chair, which happened to be his chair. I saw the questioning look on his face and ignored it. I set up my laptop on the table he graciously provided. He looked at the laptop and said nothing about it. He asked me to follow him inside, showed me to my room, and told me to rest. I didn't come to rest, I said pleasantly enough. I want to go over the documents tonight so that I'm ready first thing tomorrow. He looked at me with something that wasn't quite amusement. Sit down and eat first, he said. The document will still be document in the morning. I sat, I ate. I told myself he was just old and slow, and that I would have this wrapped up before he would even finish worrying about it. The first morning, I went to the land registry with my color-coded folder and my city confidence, and I talked to the man at the front desk the way I talk to people at offices in Accra, quickly, precisely, making clear without being rude that I knew what I needed and expected it to be provided immediately. The man listened to me with an expression I didn't know how to read. Then he told me to come back in the afternoon. I came back in the afternoon, and a different person told me that the officer I needed was not available. I asked when he would be available, and the person shrugged in a way that I found deeply unprofessional, and I made him know in a loud voice how this wasn't done anywhere. All the staff in the office stared at me and turned back to whatever they were doing. I was mortified. The gall, the effrontery. How dare they treat me this way? I came back to my Uncle Kofi's compound and I talked about it at length. I talked about how inefficiency was a choice, how documentation didn't have to take years if people simply did their jobs, how it was this exact attitude, that had allowed the matter to drag on while the family suffered. I was pacing slightly and had loosened my collar. Uncle Kofi sat in his chair and listened to all of it. Then he said, "Be careful how you speak to people here." I wasn't rude, I said. I was direct. He picked up his cup of tea and said, "There's a difference between being direct and being dismissive. The people at that office can see the difference, even if you can't." I told him as respectfully as I could manage that perhaps if the people at the office had been a little more direct themselves over the past 2 years, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He looked at me over his cup and said nothing. I went to my room and reviewed my documents and went to sleep confident that tomorrow would go better. It didn't. The second day I arrived at the registry, the man at the front desk looked through me as though I was made of air. I waited. I tried again. A woman walked past me 3 times carrying files and never once acknowledged that I was standing there. The officer I had been told to speak to was again unavailable, but this time, nobody could tell me where he was or when he might return. I sat in the waiting area for 2 hours and watched 3 other people, locals, older people, who greeted the staff by name and asked after their families, got attended to, got their papers stamped, got their business done. Whilst I couldn't even get anybody to talk to, and they behaved as if I didn't exist. Frustrated, I left and drove back to Uncle Kofi's compound with my jaws held tight. I said some things that I'm not proud of. I spoke about the office, about the town, about the pace at which things moved out here, about why people with education left these places and didn't come back. I was venting the way you do when you're frustrated and far from home, and the plan that seemed so clear on paper was turning to smoke in your hands. Uncle Kofi let me finish. Then he said calmly, I told you yesterday. Uncle Kofi, with respect, this isn't about my tone. These people are... He cut in as if I hadn't spoken. I told you yesterday that if you don't put aside this arrogance, you will leave here without what you came here for. I almost laughed. Arrogance? The arrogance is thinking that 2 years is an acceptable amount of time to let a simple documentation matter sit. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he looked away, out toward the compound wall, as if he had decided to let me keep my position since I seemed so attached to it. I went to my room. I told myself he was a man of another generation, another pace, and that he simply didn't understand how things worked anymore. That night, I slept restlessly. The third day turned into a shouting match until I was thrown out of the office. The funny looks I got from people as my ego was tossed out the office building wouldn't let me be. That day, I hadn't come along with my car because I'd wanted to enjoy the scenery on my way back. But I was so angry that I didn't notice where I was going until I found myself on a path between some trees. I could see houses on either side. They seemed close until I attempted to walk closer, then they seemed so far. After a couple of tries, I stopped. I was tired. It was still day, but the footpath was already half in shadow. I smelled it before I saw anything. Something old, something that had been closed and damp for a very long time. Like the smell of a room that has been kept shut across many seasons. I told myself it was the trees. Then I saw it. At first, it looked like a tree, but then it was smaller than all the trees combined. It had the features of a human, but it wasn't human. I told myself it was tiredness and that I was probably seeing things. Strangely, instead of turning around and walking away, I found myself walking towards it. Part curiosity, part compulsion to move forward. It stood still, staring at me. Then I saw everything. It did look like a tree, but it had the features of a man. Then, a movement from behind it, as if something had been summoned. I slowed down. I stared as a goat came to stand in front of the man tree. The goat turned its head toward me. Its face was now pointed directly at mine. My body went cold from the feet up. I stopped walking, and then it opened its mouth. No sound. Just a mouth opening and opening and opening, wider than the anatomy of the thing should have allowed. The darkness inside it expanded like a held breath, and in that darkness was another animal. It didn't register what animal it was as I swiftly turned and started running. The houses looked far away, but I still ran. I don't remember how long, until I finally reached a familiar road and continued until I reached my uncle's house. I saw my hands on the latch. I saw the courtyard under my feet, and I saw myself stopping and standing there, my breath nearly seizing in a chest that felt too tight. Uncle Kofi was in his chair. He had clearly heard me, but was still peacefully smoking his pipe. I told him everything. Getting lost, the forest, the man tree, the goat, its big mouth. I told it all in a rush, still breathing hard, watching his face. He listened. He was quiet when I finished. Then he looked at me with an expression I recognized from the past 2 days. Not the alarm I needed, not urgency or fear or even surprise. It was a mild, patient, almost bored look. The look of a man receiving information he already holds. Then he said, "And so, Uncle, did you hear what I warned you," he said simply, "yesterday and the day before." The cold that had started in the forest settled back into my chest. "Uncle, what does the registry have to do with?" He cut in. "I am not talking about the registry." He looked at me steadily. "I'm talking about the way you've been carrying yourself since you arrived. This place sees that. Things here see that." He paused. That was the first warning from Agbegada. First, and who is Agbe what? Agbegada, the keeper of this land. Today, he sent a goat. A goat won't harm you. Then he added, next time, it will be a dog. The word landed in the room and stayed there. I sat there in stunned silence, couldn't handle it again, and promptly walked back into my bedroom. I didn't sleep well that night. The fourth morning, I got up, washed my car, dressed up, and I drove to the land registry. I greeted the man at the front desk by name. I had learned his name from all the 3 days I went there, and I asked about his family. I greeted the woman who had walked past me 3 times with files. I greeted some of the other people in the office, and then I asked, quietly, politely, if I might speak with someone only when they had a moment. They all smiled and told me to wait a moment. After some time, the woman with the files came and sat with me to one side of the waiting room. She spoke to me gently, the way you speak to someone who has finally stopped misbehaving. She said, "Don't be afraid." Then she told me to tell my uncle that it would soon come, and that he will hear from them soon, and the papers would also follow. She looked at me with calm eyes and said, "You don't have to be afraid anymore." Her eyes reminded me of. Quickly putting that away, I thanked her and quickly drove back to my uncle's, making sure I was on the right path. I told him what she said and watched something in his face settle. Not surprise, just confirmation of a thing that has been expected for a long time. I packed my bag and went to put it in the boot of my car. I went back inside to fully say goodbye. He walked me to the gate and we embraced. And we said the ordinary things families say. I got into my car and I drove back to Accra. I have not been to Pando ever since.